So, hello everyone, welcome to Podcast
Episode 2.
I'm Katyayini Singh,
I am Hiten Gupta.
and we are your host for today's episode.
Let us introduce you to our guest, Mr. Vishal Bhardwaj, a psychology expert who is currently present at our university. So, without much further ado,
First question is, can you share your background and experience as a psychologist? What inspired you to pursue this career?
So I'm coming from an engineering background, and thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me into your podcast. I hope I will be able to provide some insights into the psychology field for the people who are looking at it for the first time. So, telling my experience, I'm coming from an engineering background, and after that, I was into studying a lot of books related to human psychology. So, I was more concerned about the management styles of people, how people behave in a particular manner, and that introduced me to the CBT, which is the cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's where I got to know more about how the mind works, how we process the things, and how the things for different people it means different things. And that's where my journey of psychology started. I started my master's in psychology, and I think that's where everything started for me.
and sir, can you explain the role of a psychologist and how it differs from other mental health professionals such as psychiatrists or counselors?
Everybody has a very different role within, and that's a very good question. I think most of the people don't understand the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. So, a psychiatrist is a person who has to deal with psychic issues. When we say psychic, it doesn't mean mental. So, this is a very unique myth among, especially, it's kind of a taboo among the Indian society where people thinks that whenever somebody goes through some mental health issues, they are psychic. So, that's not the case. Psychic people are severe mental disorders that can only be diagnosed after a clinical study of it with some clinical expertise and some clinical diagnosis. Whereas a psychologist is a person who behave and works on the therapies that are not into medications. So that's a major difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. A psychologist could be your friend who is there even if you are overwhelmed with the kind of emotions that you have. For example, you are an athlete and you are going through, and I think we all can relate to it, that the recent Indian cricket match, the cricket fans are very overwhelmed with the responses and the emotions. And now, when we think about those players, so those players are also going through a lot of major traumatic experiences. So, that could be the toughest day of their life. And that is where the role of a psychologist comes. The psychology is a person who works upon the how the mind works, how mind perceives the things. Whereas a psychiatry is a very clinical field that works upon the diagnosis and treatment of severe disorders.
So, the next question, sir, that how do you balance the demands of your work as a psychologist with self care and maintaining your own mental well being?
This is very important. I think, Katyayini, this is the first step. So that you can say, for example, any health professional, so being the best thing that they can do and they can provide to anybody in the need is having their first good health of themselves. For example, if you go to a physician and the physician, him or herself, is not well, how can you say that the person will be in the best state of mind and health to help you? So, even as a psychologist, we are first trained to train our minds. So, once we are in a position to train our minds, when we think, yes, we can control things, we can have a very non judgmental third point of view about things. We cannot be uh, connected emotionally. We can be compassionate about it, but we cannot be connected because connections make it biasing. And biasing can take your decisions on the things in a very different manner. So I think that's the first step of being any kind of a health professional, not just a psychologist, to be mentally and healthy, sound.
And sir, can you discuss the relationship between physical health and mental health and how they influence each other?
Absolutely. So they are connected. It's part of health. So when we can say that the question, if I rephrase, I can say how hydrogen is connected to oxygen in terms of water. They both make water. So that is health comes from a good physical as well as the mental health. So if you are not mentally healthy, which means, for example, you feel very tired always, you don't have any kind of motivation on encouragement to go out, have a very good healthy lifestyle, you don't want to eat healthy, or maybe you don't even want to eat anything at all, or maybe you want to eat a lot of sweets because of the stress that you are going through. So your health has two parts, the physical health and the mental health. And without each of them, the definition of health doesn't complete.
Would you say that both requires discipline?
Oh, yes. And I think mental health requires more of it, because physically you can push yourself. But mentally, to push yourself, it's a very different thing, Hiten. For example, physically, you may ask yourself to, okay, let's run. Even if I'm feeling a little tired, I can run. But if you have to remember something, put concentration on something, even when you are not feeling to have a concentration upon, it's a very tough process. Or for example, you want to lose your focus from something, you are thinking too much about something, and you cannot have a simple switch where you can turn off your mental your mind and ask him to do certain tasks just because you are in need of that task. For example, you cannot remember your answers of your questions just by clicking something and say, dear mind, I have an exam tomorrow. The whole semester I have not studied. I want the best concentration of you tomorrow. Please help me remember everything in detail. That doesn't work like that.
Can you share any personal experience where you had to push your mental strength?
Every day we do that, to be honest. So you can say, okay, so if I talk about today, I think. So I was having a lot of calls today, okay, and so my calls are very sensitive calls. So these calls, these consultations, has to have the best of me. If I am not 100% there mentally, and I'm not able to understand what people are saying, the patients are saying, I think I will not be able to provide the right solution. And during these calls, where I get a lot of opportunities like this itself, an interview with young folk like you, I want to give myself, invest myself that time also, and that's how I, just plan things. So that is how I came up with a late night evening proposal to you.
So, sir, are there any self help strategies or practices that individuals can incorporate into their daily lives to improve their mental well being?
Yes, there are a lot of things. So, for example, if we talk about mental health, we talk about how our mind works. So, for the body, you need food, right? For the mind, also, you need food, and the best food is the oxygen. So, the level of oxygen is the most important food for your brain. And how do you do that? You do pranayama. So, pranayama is a very good exercise of your breathing exercise. That's a breathing exercise, so that helps regulate the flow of oxygen in your mind, and that's where all the good chemicals are released. And the good chemicals are released, you feel relaxed, you feel a lot of yourself confident, you have that kind of an zeal and exposure to come out and do the things. So everybody, so that's a must kind of thing to work on the breathing patterns and do pranayama.
Would you say
Sir,
like
many people suffer from anxiety or stress. So, is there any solution which one can do at that time only when he or she feels anxious or feels stressed?
Okay, so Katyayini, to answer that question, I would first like to highlight the difference between the word stress and anxiety. A lot of students come to me during, of course, the practice time, and they say to me that we have an anxiety attack, sir. We are going through an anxiety attack. We have an anxiety attack. So that actually is not anxiety attack. That simple stress. For example, your exams are nearby. You haven't studied well, or maybe you are not confident enough to write those exams in the way that you have expected yourself to be. Then you are obviously and naturally tend to feel a stress, but that's not anxiety attack, that's simply a stress of exam. Okay, so anxiety and stress has to have a difference. You have to understand the difference between both of these terms. And when we talk about anxiety could be a long-term thing also. For example, you are always anxious about something, maybe your appearance. Okay, you take something in you and then you keep thinking about it, and then the everything, even which is not related to your appearance, has an impact of it. For example, you feel like maybe, so this is just one of the most common examples that I get into, uh, body shaming, right? So a lot of students go through this severe pain of body shaming by their own peers. So that particular thing create an anxiety in them whenever they go into a crowd, because then they know that comments are coming for me, bad comments are coming, people are calling my names. And even when people are not doing it, even when they are the stars of that particular party, for example, they are invited for a talk, okay, and they are the most prominent speaker of that event, yet what in their subconscious mind is running is those taunting words, right? So that is how it impacts your strengths also. Okay, and that is something I think everybody should be practicing upon. Stress and anxiety both can be worked upon. Anxiety, of course, needs some external help of your counselor, but stress is something that can be easily done by yourself. The most easiest way to handle stress is to break down the goal into smaller parts, because stress is always of the big things, but when we bifurcate that big goal into some small tasks, it is easy. Just like as an example I told you, right, for the exams that you might have tomorrow, so rather than thinking of making 100 out of 100 in that exam, let's think about one chapter. Let's prepare one chapter first. So I think what I will do is, in the next 4 hours, I only have to work upon one chapter of the whole syllabus. Now it's an easy task. And once you accomplish that easy task, your mind will work more greatly because it is now rewarding you back. Now you have a confidence that, okay, one task is done, the toughest part is done. Now I have to do the same thing 5 more times. Okay, so I have done it one time, I can do it 5 more times. So which means 5 more chapters in the same manner, and I'm done. But yes, I want to highlight it on a very lighter note, that you don't follow this technique at the last moment of your exams. You have to prepare in you don't want to prepare in a hurry. Otherwise, maybe next time people will be quoting that the psychologist told us that we can clear an exam just the night before by doing this simple tricks.
No, so now it can't work anymore in university exams.
Guys, this was just an example. Oh my God.
So would you say like facing a tougher challenge first is better or a easier challenge?
Sorry, didn't get your question. Hiten.
So like if there's a tougher challenge, we should do that first or an easier challenge, like which we should.
Easier one is always the better one. Because if you are thinking that which challenge I have to pick, which means your motivation is already low, which means you are already confused. That if you would have been in a position where you don't have any issue, where whatever is coming, I will do it. So in that case, this question won't arise. But if this question has arisen, which one to do first? Which means your motivation and confidence is already low, and in that case, a low or a smaller target can give you a boost of motivation. Once you achieve it, you can do something bigger than that.
And so, what are some misconceptions or stereotypes about psychology that you have faced, and how can we address them?
Oh yeah. Okay. A lot of, I guess I can talk about it the whole night, and I still have a list ready for me. So a couple of people come to me and they say to me, "Sir, so my boyfriend is not talking to me. Can you do something? Can you just talk to him and make him understand that I am the best girlfriend that he can have?" And the same goes for the guys. They say that I love a girl. She is a crush of mine. Do you have some psychological tricks for me that I can play, and she can accept my friendship? So a lot of things. People come to me for hypnotism also. Some people come to me and say, do you also work upon the ghost and the parasupernormal things? A lot. My God. The list is endless, to be honest today. A lot of taboos. People think that we are the people who work only with the retarded people. So that is, I think, the
So it's the
harshest
most
comment.
common stereotype, I think.
Yeah.
That's the harshest comment I think is in the psychological department. That whenever somebody enters into the office of mine, as a even to talk, even just to have a very good chat with me because they're my friends, and when they enter, their colleague thinks they are now gone case.
So, sir, in your opinion, what are the most pressing psychological issues or challenges facing society, this society is facing today, and how can psychology help address them?
That's a very good question, but I think that will attract a lot of criticism also, even from my colleagues, because I think we are responsible for the very sad state of mental health of the younger generation of yours, Katyayini and Hiten. We, the people, elder to you, are responsible for it because we always thought and compared our lives with yours. We always thought we could have done it. Why can't you do it? But the things are very different. So that is something that has created extra burden of pressure on you, extra burden of expectations on you. Now, let me be very honest. We talk about, let's get our country free from drugs, right? Drug-free country, we talk about, right? Drug-free. So, to be honest, when I did my engineering, it was still the same slogan, drug-free. The drugs were sold at a very high price at that time, 4,000, 5,000. It is now 2023. The slogan remains same, drug free. And actually, we haven't been drug free, but the drugs are now almost equal to free. You can get it by in 50 or 100 rupees now. So the drugs are free, but in a very literal manner. So why it happened? No, so government or institutions, even I'm talking very boldly here, that even college institutions want a very drug-free institution or ecosystem, right? But they never want to talk about why the drugs came into play, why the student had to go to the drugs. There must be some reason. Nobody is doing it just for the fun. Everybody is not doing it, at least. There are people who go through very sad mental state, and nobody was there to talk. Nobody was there to mentor them. Nobody was there to guide them, or even to say, to help, that even understand or even hear them. People were not even able to hear them. They were simply said that you are just doing drama, you are melodrama, you are putting just exaggerating the things. This is not as bad as you think. So these things push them to that. And rather than accepting, we as an elder people of the society, elder to you, so we as an mentors don't want to take the responsibility and the blame that we are also responsible of your bad mental state. We are simply saying, let's take off the drugs out of the things, because that's the easy thing to say. Simply because it is easy to say, let's blame it on drugs. Nobody wants to go into the deep details why they are going into drugs. Drugs were not as prominent as they are right now 10 years back. I remember my college, and it was seriously, now when I see you guys in the college, I see a very different state of minds. And I think these 10 years, it means the people like ourselves are responsible, and I think we should take a stand now. It is high time that we understand that you guys are going through a very, very tough competition that was not the case in our times.
Would you say there has been an increase in mental issues over the recent times? And if so, why?
Sorry, Dave, can you repeat the question?
Like, do you think there has been an increase in mental issues among the youth? And if
It's
so, why?
exponential. I think it's exponential, to be honest. So, even if we take some data, so I have proven data for that. So, if we talk about it, just 10 years back, things were not as worse as things are now. And the worst part of this is these things, the psychological data of people going through troubling times in their mental health, is never recorded in the right manner. So even the data that is there on the internet is just a glimpse of what is underneath. It is just the tip of the iceberg. How many people we already know, Katyayini and Hiten, that are going through mental issues but are not never went to a counselor, right? Those things remain under them, become a trauma. So that is how the process starts. It starts with the stress, became an anxiety, becomes a trauma, becomes their whole personality.
How do you approach issues of cultural diversity and inclusivity in your work as a psychologist, and why is this important?
So it is not just about inclusivity in terms of sexual preferences or genders. I think for me, anybody who is talking to me is just a mind. It's just a brain that I'm talking. I don't see what gender it is coming from. I don't see what culture it is coming from. I don't see what you can say the background the person carries. For me, it is just a very good brain that need to be rewired.
How do you see the intersection of psychology with other fields such as neuroscience, sociology, or education? And what opportunities does this create for students?
Okay, so this is a very good question, to be honest, especially for the aspirants who are trying to take their career in psychology. So every door is open for psychology because a psychologist is needed everywhere. So even when you are in my engineering, my even my experience in corporate was into data science. So I was a data scientist, and there also we used to study and work on the behaviors of customers, how a customer buy or not buy something, right? And this comes from a very special field of cognitive in psychology. And if you are a master's in it, if you understand how the mind works, you understand how a customer works. And when you understand how a customer works, you know how a business works. When you know how a business works, you know how economy works. It is so much connected. If I talk about the business way, and if you talk about sociology, for example, so if we know how a person works, we know how a group of person works. If we know how a group of person works, we know how their mind works in a particular setting, which means what kind of a society is thinking, what kind of a thing or what kind of perception they have about a particular issue. And that is how sociology as a whole comes into picture. That is what sociology is. And you can be a great resource for the humankind.
How do you stay updated with the latest developments in psychology? And do you have any recommended resources or journals for students interested in keeping up with the field?
Okay, so I read a lot, to be honest. I say more than 500, 600 books, even at my home. So I read a lot. And even from my mentors, especially my seniors, I talk to them regularly. They keep sending me, and I keep helping the people who are just going through their first courses, the bachelor's in psychology. So that helps me understand and revise myself, and that is how the transformation of thoughts comes. So for example, you have asked me some questions related to psychology. I don't know about that. Maybe I will go back, check it out, then teach you, or maybe you know something that you can teach me, and I will be very happy to take that. And this transformation and this transportation of thoughts creates a lot of opportunity of learning.
So, sir, can you suggest us some books regarding psychology that beginners like us can read?
Yeah.
There are a lot, isn't it? There are a lot of popular books. Psychology of Money you can start with. Then okay, Ikigai is a very good help book that you can start with. So these are a lot of books. I can name a lot of books of that.
Is there any book that has like outshined, like for you it is special?
Psychologically, if you say, see, it is more about how you read the things. For me, it could be a different thing. For you, it could be a different thing. But for me, for example, autobiography of a yogi. Okay, so this book is not very particularly related to psychology, but if you are a psychology student and you read it, you understand how the mind of a person works, and you can have a very different perception that you might not have before reading.
So what advice do you have for students pursuing a career in psychology, whether in research, clinical work, or other fields?
I think it's one of the most prominent careers in the coming time. People will need a lot of healers. So these healers can come from the psychology department. That can come from holistic healing people also. So when you combine a lot of those things, and you have to combine those to be honest. So it doesn't work like it's supposed to be working in the last 20 years. The definition of psychology has changed now. Now people want to talk to those counselors that can not only understand their things but can advise them in the latest, trendiest manner. For example, say somebody come to you and you are a career counselor and you don't know about machine learning, and the patient is talking about that thing only. So I think to advise that, you must have the understanding of those concepts, right? So it is not just simple theoretical knowledge that is going to work in the future. You have to accumulate and combine a lot of different subjects to come up with a strategy that is for the next generation.
As a student, did you feel like you could have done something better in your times?
Sorry, but
Sir, like when you were a student, you do you think you could have done something better uh, studying or preparing for psychology or some?
sorry, I didn't get your question.
So like when you were a student, there was something you think you could have done better during those times.
I actually uh, listened to your question. At the first time itself, I just wanted you to change it.
Cool.
No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, so there could be a lot of things, right? We can redo a lot of things. Even we make a perfect masterpiece of a painting, there is always a scope of improvement, right? So if I am still a student, I always consider myself as a student. So if I think that I missed something in my curriculum at that particular time, even in engineering, for example, so right, I missed a couple of subjects in my engineering time. Microelectronics was one of my finest expertise when I was doing engineering, and now I don't need it, and I didn't studied it for that expertise kind of a level at that time, but now I studied. So you will always have an option, right? Who is stopping you? You simply has to pick up a book and just start about it. But maybe if you say as an advice to the people who are coming into psychology, what advice I can give to my younger self, then I think it will be do not study it just to clear it. I mean, like, you do not need to study it to clear your concepts. You need to go into your concepts. You need to go into the depth of it. Without you go into the depth of psychology and you just know the knowledge of it, it's a huge difference. And you
Uh,
have to read a lot of people. Reading a lot of books doesn't complete your hunger.
you have to like practice.
uh,
People are like books.
Hmm.
People are 10 times more productive than books, to be honest with you. And if you read 10 books and I talk to one good person for 1 hour, it's the same kind of knowledge transfer.
So lastly, what message or key takeaway would you like to leave with our listeners regarding the importance of psychology and mental health in our lives?
So I would like to say that, your mental health is in your hands. But if you think you are not able to have a control of it and you need some help, please don't hesitate to come to a counselor. Those counselors are there as an expert to help you unravel and solve the puzzles of your mental situations at that time. So do not hesitate. And for the scholars, I think just go with it. You will love it. So when you learn how the mind works, you will understand how the toughest of the issues of life, or even the toughest of the issues of this world, the world that is facing right now, is just a matter of a perspective. And if we are able to change that perspective, I think we can change everything.
So thank you, sir, for your precious time. It has been a pleasure to record a podcast with you.
It's wonderful talking to you, Katyayini and Hiten. I think you both have a very successful career ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye. Sarve Bhavat Sukhina.